Alright, so for today's video, we're gonna be reacting to a video that was sent by one of my mods. And this video, I'm not entirely sure what it's all about, but it's called The Worst Guide to Path of Exile by Connor Conquers. So I'm kind of intrigued on what this actually is. It looks like we're starting out with some kind of old school Danish ship here. This is the... Let's make sure we are fully on the beginning here. But yeah, let's get into it. Leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. And I'll leave the links to the video and everything in the description. And do go check it out, man. Hell yeah, let's get it.
In 1769, Captain James Cook set foot on and mapped out New Zealand. Shortly thereafter, in 1788, England started sending some of its prisoners to the nearby Australian colony. And then finally, on June 28, 2000, Blizzard Entertainment released Diablo 2. These three equally important historic events.
Wait. Yo, that is fucking amazing. I just now realized what's happening.
Shortly thereafter, in 1788, England started sending some of its prisoners to the nearby Australian colony. And then finally, on June 28, 2000, Blizzard Entertainment released Diablo 2. These three equally important historic events led up to one of the most important game design questions ever posited by the visionary philosopher Chris Wilson.
Bro, this is brilliant.
Meth had a skill check.
Yes. Oh, the beautiful sound.
Path of Exile is a free-to-pay ARPG with a heavy focus on crafting, itemization, and customizable character progression. And when I say heavy focus, I mean focus like a gacha gamer searching for any semblance of a pinching emoji. This is essentially a spreadsheet masquerading as a video game. Now, you may have heard that this game is infamously overcomplicated, but I am here to assure you that is not the case. It's so much worse than you can fathom. Okay, so it's a little hostile towards new players. You will see unironic forum posts with subjects like, I'm a relatively new Path of Exile player with only 500 hours in the game. How do I...
Bro, this is legitimate, for real. I'm a fucking new player. I only got 580 hours. Like, that is awesome. What the fuck is happening here?
Why? This is because every few months, Path of Exile releases a new league. What's a league? About 18,230 feet, but in Path of Exile terms, it's a full character and economy reset bundled with a new central mechanic. Now, most games are happy to power creep their old content into
the measurement.
But the drooling psychopaths at Grinding Gear Games said, what if everything was always relevant? Forever. This means that there are dozens of core concepts over the last decade that you need to understand in order to reach this game's true end game, getting a fancy belt. But before we can dress you up in more high-end goods than Peter Nygaard, first we're going to have to commit more crimes than Peter Nygaard. We create a new account, log in, and create a new character. What character should you pick? Oh, Muffin. We're nowhere near being able to answer that question. So for now, just go with whoever you think looks cool. To help you decide, here's a quick breakdown of each exile. The Templar is a religious man who tried to convince the church that Has-Been Hotel was canon and was justifiably excommunicated. The only thing longer than his religious ramblings is his neck. The Shadow Deer ate the rich and
for real, he got that long neck, man.
Based off of his looks, he probably listens to MCR, so you know not to feel too bad for him. After that, we have the Marauder, a character modeled after the weakest Maori warrior, literally exiled for being too much of a Chad. The Scion killed her husband on their wedding night, and far worse, refused to return any of their wedding gifts. She needs to be literally unlocked. The Ranger was banished for being a tomboy, which, as we all know, causes rampant bisexuality. The damage was incalculable. The Duelist is a true man amongst men. He was cheated in a duel, so he cheated his opponent out of a pulse. And finally, we have the Witch, a pick-me girl who was banished for committing the worst crime known to New Zealand, writing bad Lore Olympus fanfic, also murder. In case it isn't obvious by now, I don't know what the hell is going on here. I'm not sure anyone does. I've finished this campaign multiple times, and I still don't know why I have to acquire the Staff of Virginity before I'm allowed to punch God in the heart. Because it doesn't matter. We're not really here for the campaign. campaign. So just like Tai Killer, I'm going to speedrun us through it so that we can get to the real game. We wake up on the shores of Rayclast, aka lore-accurate Australia, and start a very bare-bones tutorial for skills, links, and combat. Skills come in the form of colored gems that are either active or supportive. These gems go into colored sockets on your gear, which are connected by links. With this system, you can boost any active skill gem with any supportive gems, so long as they are linked and compatible. For example, taking Burning Arrow and supporting it with Pierce so that we can achieve double the arson in a single shot. Want to know more? Too bad. Moving on. We're not going to be spending too much time in the worst vacation zone known to man unless you're playing hardcore mode. If you clicked that funny box at character creation, well, you might want to bring some sunscreen. Personally, I don't play hardcore mode for the same reason I don't do CBT. While some people enjoy it, I'm afraid to die and I'm probably not going to finish. We kill Hillock, an NPC whose lore will get you banned in general chat for discussing it, and make our way into town. It's an ARPG safe zone. You know the drill. Vendors, quests, waypoints, stash, the works. We also get our first skill point. So, hold on. Let me get the boss music going. Okay. Let's get the scary part over with. The moment you've all been waiting for. So, skill tree is a bit of an understatement. Honestly. Technically, it's a skill graph. Be not afraid. Here's a quick tutorial.
If you think about it, it's really not too bad, right? Because it's really only one skill tree for all characters. Instead of having... It's like the way if you had like every single Diablo 2 character skills from the skill tree all mapped out on one tree, then it would look somewhat similar, you know what I mean? It would be less, of course, but what I mean is that it would look a lot more daunting, right? Instead of the 3 different pathways you basically have in each side of your tree with Diablo. This has, I think this actually allows for a lot more customization and specialization, and I kind of like it. I think that the skill tree, when you look at it the first time, it seems completely like overwhelming, but honestly, after I've played for a little bit, it did not take me long before it started feeling a lot more comfortable looking at the tree, changing things, and making my own tweaks to builds and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm kind of liking it more and more so than having an individual skill tree for each character. So, because technically that would be 3 skill trees per exile, right? You have 3 ascendancies and they would each have like one big skill tree almost. Or like you would have one skill tree with the 3 ascendants, maybe. Either or. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
In graph theory to help you along. Catch all that? Let me break it down. Basically, all characters get the same skill tree, but your class determines where you start in this pile of dots. This tangled mess of progression is divided into 3 sections: intelligence, strength, and dexterity. Each section is packed with clusters made up of small passives leading up to a notable passive, the taking of which unlocks a mastery related to the cluster. There's some other stuff, but don't worry about it for now. It looks scary, but for now, just pick whatever skills make you stronger or whatever keeps you alive longer. There are too many layers of offense and defense to cover in a guide like this, but just path towards whatever you think is interesting or you feel you need more of. Really, that's it. See, it's not so bad, at least until we get to the end of the campaign. After that, well, we'll get there. Anyway, time to move on and rip through the campaign. Yeah. After avoiding a gaggle of British people,
I think the campaign
in the game
side
where we
of
get
things
bodied by whatever the hell Aroa is. If you can make it past this zone, you can make it through the rest of the campaign. You kill a mermaid, wipe out some Aztecs piloting the world's slowest battle mech, and then savage the blood dungeon so that we can get shown the true face of God. And that's just Acts 1, 2, and 3 of 10. Now we just have to kill the devil from the Bible, so that we can return to Oriath, where we can finally kill God or die trying. We die trying. Lucky for us, the concept of sin or something saves us. I wasn't really paying attention. Anyway, back to the beach. Now Act 1 is Act 6, and we get to run through a remix of all the acts. We help a mermaid deal with her crabs before finding out what happens when someone watches way too much interspecies reviewers. After that, we settle a sibling dispute the
The
hard way
Goon
so that we
Cave.
can run through the blood aqueducts 20
Shout out
times
to
before facing down the diabetes
South
demon.
Park.
Finally, we get our rematch with God, but this time we brought the right MacGuffin. The Kataba boss fight is actually a pretty great end to the campaign. It's a pretty hard fight your first few times through, and it feels appropriately epic, but hey, that's it, you did it! 20 to 30 hours in, and you finally beat Path of Exile. Tutorial.
I was like, it sounded like he was like...
Kataba was a little bitch compared to what's on the horizon.
Oh, that's
There's an
awesome.
infinite number of worlds
That's
out there,
awesome.
and they're all being threatened by various
Hell
forces
yeah.
beyond comprehension. And that's not just because they're mostly eldritch abominations, but because understanding the character and gear progression required to fight them is harder than understanding Raelian. So that begs the question, what build should we play? Honestly, that's up to you. There's always a handful of meta builds that are popular, but there's a guide out there for almost every skill, and that's what makes this game so unique. Want to set people on fire by being literally holier than thou? Righteous Fire. Want to summon dozens of floating skulls to nibble through your enemies like a swarm of angry piranhas? Summon Raging Spirits. Want to be more caustic than a Call of Duty lobby? Toxic Rain. Want to have no fucking clue what's going on? Flicker Strike. There's a near endless
Oh my
combination
God,
of
is
skills
that
and classes
what
to
it looks
choose from,
like?
but it really dozens of floating skulls. What's going on? Flicker Strike. There's a near endless...
Okay, now I can't fucking wait to build the build. Hey, he's using the same fur that I am. And the... Oh, and he got the fucking amulet. Damn. It's like 140
this combination of skills and classes to choose from, but it really comes down to what you think will be fun and what you can budget. Time to get on
That's
that
the
Sigma
quad-
Femboy grind set. The real goal for this game is to get rich and die
Anointed
trying.
Amulet, bro,
Your budget
from,
for a build will depend on how many chaos, divines,
Blighted.
and mirrors you can amass in a reasonable amount of time. What are those things? Well, they're the gold standard for player trade, and 3 of several dozen currencies in Path of Exile. I assume the devs set it up this
I'm gonna do a selfless plug here. I'm just putting out a currency video on what the basics of the currencies is used for like a new player video, right? So you can get the gist of what that all is about.
way because New Zealand runs on some similar unhinged exchange system. So what is value? Everything in Path of Exile has a rarity and difficulty of acquisition, which along with how desired or meta it is in a given league will determine its value. Now, this may sound like I'm saying there is a stock market-like economy built around this game. Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And just like the Canadian housing market, it's mostly speculative and you probably can't afford shit. If you make it this far
Well,
in your first league,
it's speculative to a certain degree because certain currencies you can invest into and they will guaranteed make you profits no matter what.
and you want to go further, you should plan your budget to be around at most a few hundred chaos to maybe 5 divines if you're feeling spicy.
Like you can invest your chaos into divines, your divines into locks of mirror shards, and that way grow your wealth without actually, like just so you don't lose out on value over time.
You see, mirrors are right out. Don't even look at them. As far as you're concerned, they don't exist. But why do these currencies have value? How do they help us with the end game? Well, welcome to the true boss of Path of Exile. The crafting system. I have 2 degrees from one of Canada's most universities, and I still barely understand crafting in this game. But that's not going to stop me from passing along misinformation to you, though, dear viewer. So, for Shaper's sake,
Shit
take
happens.
everything I'm about to say with enough grains of salt to season a hardcore player's death. Items have a fixed number of modifier slots on them called affixes, which are split between prefixes and suffixes, usually 3 each, but some have less or different amounts. What type of affixes can appear on an item depend on that item's type. Most affixes have tiers. The lower the tier, the better the stat range. The possible tiers also depend on the item's level, with higher item levels allowing lower tiers to roll. All affixes have different weights that can determine how likely they are to appear. However, through the dark art of crafting, we can change those weights in our favor. At the end of all of this, just remember the chances of a desired affix appearing is always 50-50, since it either shows up or it doesn't. Now, there are several ways to craft in Path of Exile. Resonators, essences, spam, beasts, and many more. But everything comes back to chaos, divines, and exalted orbs. The market reason for this, like most things, is unfortunately math, but it's mostly attributed to things like metacrafting, chaos sinks, and some other stuff I just don't have the care to explain at you. So how does one go about obtaining all these fancy crafting resources? Well, it's time to finally talk about Oh, did you think we were done with graphs? You delicious buffoon, we're just getting started. The Atlas of Worlds is our endgame progression system. Like the skill tree, this might look a little daunting, but it's not that bad, at least until we start throwing stones at it. The Atlas is made up of maps. A map is a specific area that gets procedurally generated when opened with the map device. Each map has a tier which determines the level of monsters in it. The higher the tier, the stronger the monsters, the more difficult the map, but the more rewarding the loot. The tiers go from 1 to 16 for the standard maps, with a special tier 17 being used for
I'm bent from my will.
As we clear maps, we can do bonus objectives which get harder as our maps change color. Completing this bonus objective yields a funny new type of point. Whatever could that be for, I wonder? Hold on, let me get the boss music again. And here we have the Atlas passive skill tree. Last graph, I swear.
Right,
Remember
right,
all those
okay.
old League mechanics I mentioned at the start?
Yo, so the thing is, right, and this is something I didn't realize in the beginning of playing the game. I didn't actually know that there would be like a second skill tree. Like I looked at that first skill tree, it seemed overwhelming to begin with. I got somewhat comfortable with it, and then I finally got to the point where we got to maps. And that's when I got, and it messed with my head because I looked at that skill tree and I was like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Now I have to like invest a lot of time into researching what this actually is and what's good for like my build and whatnot. But luckily for me, a lot of guys in chat was helping me out with it. And it made it so much easier to understand. And I did so much research after that too. I researched so much to understand all the different parts of the mechanics, and then now I'm currently researching crafting and basically how to end game juicing, really like the highest end of juicing. What's the best forms where you get the best gear, the best drops, the best possibilities for something really, really, really valuable. And I'm starting to learn slowly but surely. And I think that within the next 2 leagues, I would imagine that I'm starting to get to a point where I feel really comfortable with the whole situation, and I'll be a lot better and faster at getting through like the campaign and getting to the red maps. And already now I've improved a lot, but I feel like I have room to improve a lot more too. So I'm looking forward to that experience and journey. Yeah, fucking. But this is really honestly, this is a great video. Holy shit.
Start of the video? Well, here they are, but on steroids. This is where you can customize what you find most fun in Path of Exile and exploit it for profit. There is a ton of League mechanics to choose from, but here's a brief rundown of my personal favorites. Expedition adds a fun cast of characters to your map who benefit from your cheap foreign labor. Harbingers adds the Blue Man group, but now the music is just... Betrayal turns this meme into a mechanic. Ritual adds a gambling window to our gambling simulator. Incursion adds Elva, who tells us there are riches in an Aztec temple, enabling a Christopher Columbus playthrough. And Blight turns the game into a tower defense, which attacks your frame rate more than your character. And those are just a handful. There is so much variety to choose from, so make like a sexually curious college student and try a bit of everything. And a little advice on mechanic farming. Don't get swept up in what some people tell you is optimal or best. There's good strategies for almost everything, but the only wrong way to play Path of Exile is one where you're not having fun. Now, as we progress our Atlas, we may start to encounter anomalies. The Envoy here...
See, that's what I do personally, right? Like, I research guys like Empyrean, because for understanding loot and how to gain or to maximize profits and stuff like that, it's just a guy who has the ability to maximize stuff because of the enormous community he has around him. It provides him an opportunity to really min-max and do stuff that your everyday player just won't ever be able to achieve. Including myself. Like, I don't think that I would ever be able to gain that kind of that level of freedom to do stuff. Like, I don't, but I love it because it lets you see the absolute like peak of performance within the game, like the peak of what you can achieve, and it's very interesting to study because there is Empyrean is one of the guys that I really do look a lot up to, and another guy would be Spicy Sushi, for instance, because it's crafting. I've just now started watching a bunch of his stuff. He's incredible at crafting, absolutely incredible. Belton was really good with crafting too. There's a couple of other guys that I've seen that are just immaculate crafters and very interesting. Bazooka Tank is another guy, but very interesting content, right? And it teaches you a whole lot of things. I cannot believe how much I learned from just researching other people's way, like the ways they've done something, especially with the crafting. Like the crafting has been I'm a little bit more willing to just experiment when it comes to like the atlas and doing maps and juicing and stuff like that. I rather want to experiment with those type of things and just do random shit to see if it works. But when it comes to crafting, it's kind of expensive, right? So you don't just want to do some random shit and hope it works. You kind of want to make sure it works. Yeah.
On top of sounding like chill hip-hop speak to study and relax to, warns us of a few of the endgame baddies that we're going to run up against as we enter red maps. Mini-bosses like the mukbang YouTuber and Lady Gaga both require boss knowledge to beat, like how to navigate the Taco Bell swamp attack, but with a little gumption and some decent gear, they shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now firmly planted in red maps, we can look to the top of the Atlas passive tree, and here we can see the pinnacle bosses of Path of Exile. Cirrus, the Awakened, the Searing Exarch, the Eater of Worlds, Cortex, the Shaper, and the Elder, and finally, the
Mrs. Mivan. My least favorite.
If we're going to have any chance at defeating
I
these
really
big
love the
bads,
boss
we're gonna
fight,
need
but
a
I
real
really
build
don't
with
like it
real
at the same
gear.
time.
It's going to take hundreds of maps to
Just the
find the
memory
items
game part.
necessary to trade or
problem
craft
for me.
our stuff. This means the faster we can blast through maps, the faster we can get to these
Righteous
pinnacles of
fire.
PoE prestige. Mapping in Path of Exile is a balancing act between offense, defense, and speed. Now, me personally, I live and die a lot by the notion that the best way
That
to
looked like
mitigate
my
enemy
fucking lightning
damage is
arrow.
to never let them attack
Wait,
in the
what?
first place, which is why I stack...
Pause. How much did he die? I need to see that again. That looked like my lightning arrow, honestly.
PoE prestige. Mapping in Path of Exile is a balancing act between offense, defense, and speed. Now, me personally, I live and die a lot by the notion that the best way to mitigate enemy damage is to never let them attack in the first place, which is why I stack move and attack speed and play Flicker Strike builds. Look at that clarity of combat.
My
This is what is known as a 6-portal defense. You paid for 6 portals, you might as well use all of them.
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Now that we've hit red maps and we've filled out our skill and atlas tree, it's time to really scale our maps. In order to have a better chance at finding valuable items, we need to juice harder than a TikTok fitness influencer. You can do this by spending crafting currency on your maps by using scarabs, chisels, etc., etc. Just make sure that when you're rolling mods on your map, you roll.
He was the dude that said he never did steroids for like the longest time, and he was like eating fucking liver and shit, right? Like I don't even remember. Bro, that dude was stupid.
That your build can handle.
Ridiculous.
You don't want to run an Ellie Reflect map
One
and
look
die
at that
instantly.
body,
That would be
just
super embarrassing. No longer poor, we can engage with player-to-player trading, assuming you're in one of the trade leagues. If you're in solo self-found, then I suggest you get a certificate that your build can handle. Why won't you die? You don't want to run an Ellie Reflect map and die instantly. That would be super embarrassing. No longer poor, we can engage with player-to-player trading, assuming you're in one of the trade leagues. If you're in solo self-found, then I suggest you get a certificate of competence from Craft of Exile before wasting all your chaos trying to roll an affix that can't appear on the gear you're crafting. Otherwise, the
I've
trade
been
site
down
is
that
about to
road.
become your new addiction. Oh, it'll
Don't
start
do
off
that.
small, a ring upgrade here, a skill gem there, but before long, you'll have several active searches
Definitely
running
use
while riding
Craft
a
of
new
Exile
lethal
to
dose
make
of
sure.
Ritalin, so you can buy a crappy cluster jewel base at 10C under market value before Scraper Bot does. And when you get that invite, you will ride that high until you reach the seller's hideout and get flashbanged by their trapped waifu's bare ass and or feet.
Right.
Speaking of trash, it's time for a loot filter. We won't be picking up 99% of the items that hit the floor, so hit up neversinkfilterblade.xyz and download the basic loot filters. Nothing triggers that dopamine spike like that iconic tink sound anyway. Oh, that's the stuff. As you get better and figure out what mechanics you find fun, you can customize this to the beach and back, but for now, just stick with the basic filters. If you haven't been filtered out of the player base by this point, then it's time for the ultimate tool. Any PoE player worth their salt needs Path of Building. This isn't optional. Path of Building allows us to simulate any build you or an Adderall Field community member can hallucinate. Can't decide between two passives on the tree? POB it. Want to know if that item is an upgrade? POB it. Want to crack the seed number required for a timeless jewel? POB it. This is the real video game. Path of Exile is simply a tool to test your Path of Building creation. So, now that we're decked out, let's pay those...
Let's hear that one more time, please. That was so fucking accurate.
Any build you or an Adderall Field community member can hallucinate. Can't decide between two passives on the tree? POB it. Want to know if that item is an upgrade? POB it. Want to crack the seed number required for a timeless jewel? POB it. This is the real video game. Path of Exile is simply a tool to test your Path of Building creation. So, now that we're decked out, let's pay those pinnacle bosses a visit. Hit it.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Pinnacle bosses are difficult and will take some practice. That said, they have fairly clear and telegraphed attacks that usually have an audio component that'll let you know what's coming.
Right.
Some of these really audio cues are even kind of infamous, like Cirrus's Die Beam, or the Eater's Hunger Slam.
No worries, we eat those. Yeah, that's a different problem right there.
Spend enough time in the Atlas and something funny happens. We're well past the point of being able to clear difficult maps. Hell, we can defeat any boss, and yet we continue to make it harder on ourselves. We're not doing this to win anymore. We won a long time ago. We chose the path of Sisyphus and asked for a bigger boulder. Cirrus and the conquerors of the Atlas weren't a warning, they were an aspiration. We're not playing for victory. We're playing for big numbers and even bigger memes. Remember those tier 17 maps? Well, upon completion, they can drop a fragment. Collect all the pieces and you can gain access to an Uber encounter. Uber bosses have more health, deal more damage, have more damage reduction, augmented mechanics, and more importantly, have a special item drop pool. Some of the best items in the game only drop from the Uber version of Pinnacle bosses. However, more often than not, you're going to get trash. But hey, that's PoE, baby. So how do we deal with this railroad spike through the head in difficulty? By pushing our build to its absolute limit. I'm talking more defense than when I gave a coworker constructive criticism. I'm talking more offense than when Australia decided it didn't like emus. I'm talking Tier 0 uniques. Tier 0 uniques are the rarest items in Path of Exile outside of mirror tier rares. Some of them are so powerful that entire builds can be crafted around just a single one. Of these chase items, Mage Blood is one of the most sought after. For several leagues since its introduction, it's been one of the most expensive uniques in any given league, and the only way to obtain it is to grind harder than a stripper trying to break out of ELO hell. Now, you can do endgame content without these items, but that's not why you're here, is it, cutie? And I know, again with the tiers, we've got more tiers than a wedding cake baked by a coke fiend, but don't stress too much about these ultra rare items. The build I've been using for most of this video costs like 10 divines and is hardcore viable. Too bad I'm not. But if we're gonna do this, we may as well farm currency like we're trying to buy a price-inflated Big Mac and push our sword-based persuasion as far as we can.
Yes, sir. That one is stupid, but yes, we like it.
And now, with that finally out of the way, we can discuss her. Well, there is arguably no real final boss in Path of Exile, and there are harder enemies than things like Deep Delve. The Maven is widely regarded as the final test in Path of Exile. The nascent eldritch entity, she is a child, we do not lose the Maven, wants to figure out what life is and does this by slamming her toys together.
The Maven is your exam, right? Basically. like doing Uber Maven is your exam to like now you have graduated to being a player, a new player, right? Like a decent new player. You're starting to understand the game, but at this point, right, there's still stuff above it, and I think the real true test in the game is doing the Grandmasters. That is the pinnacle. Once you've like, that's the ultra end of the game. Like you have officially, if you've done the Grandmasters, I feel like okay, you've basically done everything in the game now. Just because of how powerful they are nowadays. Maybe not to begin with, but nowadays I feel like that is because the Grandmasters are insane. They are crazy.
Until they break. The only problem is that we're the toys. She collects other bosses for fun. The Maven can be summoned to any map to increase that map boss's difficulty, and after defeating it, it will be stored away in an invitation for later. Early, this means you'll have to fight a handful of bosses at once, but later, it's 10 enhanced map bosses more or less back to back to back. But who cares about the standard map bosses at this point? Like I said, we can defeat any boss. Well, it isn't just the standard map bosses that interest her.
Ooh.
Special bosses like the Shaper's Prisoners, Cirrus's Elder Slayers, or even Cortex's Creations are all fair game. And these four-way fights can get more intense than Thanksgiving political discussion and only slightly less violent. But even that's not enough for the Maven, because not even the pinnacle bosses are safe. Atziri, Cortex, Chayula, and even the
That
Shaper
is
and the
still
Elder
one of the
cannot
craziest
escape from
fights.
grasp. But
Honestly.
it's not like we have to fight them all at once, right?
It's a little crazy to do all four at once. That's just a little extreme. Like it's doable, you can do it, but it's annoying. I prefer having like 1 or 2 out at a time. So it's a little bit more you can concentrate a little bit more on one instead of just having to like fly around the arena.
Time to
constantly.
finally beat the Uber Maven so that I can post this video and have Chris give me my streamer client. I just hope that I can dodge the most difficult attack in the game.
The most difficult attack in the game is the memory game. That's the one right there. I think I could have remembered round the bound. That would have been a good one for me. That would have been a really good one for me.
Path of Exile is a spreadsheet-based gambling addiction that should be avoided at all costs. It will cause you to watch entire videos of someone talking over a notepad or spreadsheet document and think, yo, this looks sick, I can't wait to try it. And just like watching One Piece, it only gets good after several hundred hours. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I love poring over the novel with patch
played.
notes.
Hey, I'm a little. Let's quickly do some research here. Library. Downloads, right? No. Oh. Oh. Oh boy. Oh boy. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot. Fuck.
Every league start and then going to Reddit so I can be told why this is the worst thing to ever happen. I love reading the nerfs and getting gaslit by Zizarin as to why this is good, actually. I love ignoring...
Although it's not fully... That's not fully entirely correct though, because I've left the fucking PC on a lot of times and left for a couple hours and it's been sitting in the game and then I came back to check if somebody asked for a trade or something. So I have done that quite a bit of times. So it's not 100% accurate. Let's say probably like 400 hours or something like that. It's just been sitting there where I haven't touched it. But still, that's like 2k hours. That's not too bad.
Both of those things, and then playing Flicker Strike again and just having a glorious time. At its heart, Path of Exile is an amazing ARPG that has some of the deepest customization you could ever ask for. There's so many different ways to customize your gameplay on so many different levels, it's honestly kind of crazy. Players will often optimize the fun out of their own gameplay, but Path of Exile is one of those rare games where optimization is part of the fun. Now, this game is free to pay. You can absolutely absolutely enjoy everything this game has to offer without spending any money, but it's a lot more fun and convenient if you buy a few stash tabs. I have seen a lot of scummy microtransactions in video games, but with Path
Correct.
of Exile, it really feels earned. Every league brings excellent...
Bro, I could not have said that better myself. I've never ever had the enjoyment of playing a free game where there is a hell of a lot of microtransactions in. I've never really had too much fun playing those games. The only real game, there's 2 mobile games I played, Megapolis and Pokemon Go. That's the only 2 mobile games I ever really played. I played a couple of others, but for a very short amount of time, right? That's the only 2 I actually played for a significant amount of time, right? And pretty much every other game I've played, there's been, like Call of Duty, for instance, there's microtransactions in that too. But old day Call of Duties, it wasn't too bad. You could earn the crates and you could basically unlock everything for free. And if you played a lot, you automatically unlocked everything. It wasn't impossible. However, nowadays it is. You can't grind the season pass and then you can buy everything in the store. You know what I mean? There's nothing like that. There's no earning more card points than what's in the season pass, right? It's not like after every match you get rewarded 20 card points or whatever the fuck. So there's no way to earn any of the blueprints, and they give you a significant advantage. I will say that the stats tabs does give an advantage, but it's not something that I would consider power. So I don't feel like it's something that ruins the game. And it's entry level access. The payment you pay is basically the same payment you would pay if you bought any type of AAA game, right? You would pay like $70, maybe $100. And if you pay $70 or $60 for a supporter pack, you can have all the stats tabs you really need. So I feel like that's a very fair deal. But as he said, it's not scummy like Activision is doing or other companies like Ubisoft, where they sell power in the store or they do something crazy. They buff the weapons, and then the weapon they buff is automatically the new blueprint that they sell. Yeah, the whole mentality is just really scummy on those games. And here, you never once get pushed towards the store. You're never playing the game and coming out somewhere or doing something, and then it pops up with a window where it says, oh, this thing is on offer today. You physically have to open up the store and go there to look if there's something you want. And it's not forced upon you in any kind of way. And I really, really, really respect that. And that in turn made me want to spend way more money on the game than I would normally have done, because I then sat down and calculated the amount of time that I spent on the game and the enjoyment I got out of it, and what I felt was the value of the game in comparison to something like Call of Duty or like Diablo 4 or like Dying Light or something else, whatever else I've played, right? Like Assassin's Creed. And I just don't find those games gave me the same amount of satisfaction that this has. So it felt like this was worth a whole lot more than some of these games were. So for that reason, I chose to spend a lot more on it than I would normally spend on any game. But mostly because I really want to support the company, and I feel like they are doing it right in comparison to almost everybody else who are doing it the absolute worst and scummiest way they can. So applause to GGG for being really straight up and honest about everything and really clear about the pricing and stuff like that. It's super clear. I really love that, and I thank you so much for doing it like that.
content for free and quality of life features, mostly in the forms of RSI reduction. I'm usually happy to drop some money on this game every couple of leagues or so because the devs absolutely deserve it. If you really enjoy this game, I would recommend getting a currency tab and a map tab and then deciding for yourself if you want to invest any more. GGG puts up a stash tab sale every few weeks, so keep an eye out for that before buying. And if you really like this game, then buy yourself some drip and lose that yee ass armor set. Finally, let's talk about some actually good players. The community around this game is one of the best, and honestly, you pretty much can't go wrong with just going to the PoE Twitch page and then picking a random person. The landlord and the tenant are both wonderful and earning energy. Zizarin puts out fantastic guides every league start and should be the first stop for any newer player looking to get into Path of Exile. Steel Mage, on the other hand, is great because he details his hardcore character's progression throughout the course of a league and implements interesting builds. Empyrean Gaming is where you should go if you want to see the absolutely insane limits of what Path of Exile gameplay can look like. His group usually finds a way to break the new league in half within the first few days, and it's always entertaining to watch. He also puts out great guides for mid to late game farming that are very worth checking out. And finally, I have to shout out my favorite robotic communist, Mage Fist, for indoctrinating me into the Church of Flicker Strike and finding a way to make Path of Exile guides visually interesting to look at. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for making it to the end.
You're my real friends, hate-filled strangers.
More videos to come, so I'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. I've really enjoyed being bullied into playing RimWorld, so keep the—
I think that's it for the Path of Exile, right? Man, oh man, Connor, that was a fantastic video. Holy shit, what a great video. I was not expecting this. Like, holy fuck. It's called The Worst Guide to Path of Exile, but honestly, that is a exceptionally good breakdown of a lot of things all collected into a very short amount of time. You're touching on a lot of subjects. That's really applaudable. Holy shit. And it's really easy to understand the way you put it out, so holy fuck. Incredible. I'm very impressed. That is a fantastic video. Show him some love, for sure. That is insane. That is incredible. I'll leave his link in the description. Holy fuck, man. What a video. What a fucking video. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I definitely did. Holy shit. What a day. My cheeks is hurting from smiling so much. Holy fuck. Damn. But yeah, that was a great video, and I hope everybody had a good time. And yeah, I'll catch you all in the next one.